Right. So, as you know, in today's webinar, we're going to talk about some common grammatical and lexical and pronunciation mistakes that English learners often make. And I'm no exception here. I've also made them when learning English. So, let's look at them, let's analyze them, why we make them, and what's most important, try to fix them. Okay. So, starting with grammar. Starting with grammar, how about this question? How long have you been working at a given company? So sometimes when asked this question, students would answer, I'm working or I work here since fall. Why? Well, my idea is that, well, we start analyzing, right? Thinking, okay, how long have I been working here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, etc. And we're going to focus on that instead of on the form of the question and answer, and we come up with present simple continuous here. Whilst what we should say is, I've been working, I've worked here for since or for right, and then we provide the date or the number of years, right? Right. There's another trick here, the two words since and for actually, because the answer I sometimes get is I've been working or I've worked here since 5 years, which is not exactly correct, right? Because what we should say is I've been working or I've worked here for 5 years. Now, why? Anyone, what's the difference between for and since? When translated into Polish, the two words, they mean exactly the same thing, right? Odd. So it's easy to make this mistake probably. But now we use for with the period of time, right? Like a year, a month, a week, etc. And since with a point in time. Just to give you a couple of examples, for 5 years, for a year, for 3 months, for ages, for a long time, right? Or since 2019, since last May, since I moved here, since I was born, since last week, etc. So that is the difference, right? Please remember. So in spite of the fact we translate the two words in the same way in Polish, there is a difference, right, in English. Okay. Another problem then. So say we talk about our work, we say we have a hybrid work schedule, so I mustn't be in the office every day. Any ideas how we could correct this sentence? Because it's not correct, right? So the idea here is that we want to say, okay, there is no need for me to be in the office, right? There is, Yanush, thank you. There is no need for me to be in the office every day. So what we should do here is use a synonym of must, right? But have to, and use the negative form of it, right? Because mustn't means it's forbidden, right? It's banned. Like we mustn't smoke somewhere, right? It's forbidden. So what we should say is use the negative form of the verb have to and say don't or doesn't, right? He, she doesn't have to, meaning there is no obligation simply. So in our sentence, we'd say we have a hybrid work schedule, so I don't have to be in the office every day, right? Remember that. Now, another thing with this modal verb must is how to use it in the past. Okay, that's a tricky one. Because, okay, so say I'm not feeling too good today. So I say I must call in sick, right? I need to inform my boss that I won't be coming to work today. What if it happened yesterday, right? How do I say it in the past? Any ideas, anyone? Okay, so just to help you a little, we will also use the verb have to and put it into the past, right? Which is have is a regular verb, right? So we just use the past form of have and say, yesterday I had to call in sick because I was feeling unwell. Now, some of you might say, okay, but there is a past form of must, right? We could say must have done something, right? We can use must in the past in this way. We can, that's true, but the meaning will be different. Okay, what we mean by that is, okay, let me give you an example. For instance, someone says, I don't think I've seen Shrek. And I say, oh, you must have seen it. Everyone has. Yeah, so what we mean by this is that I'm sure you've seen it, right? I'm absolutely sure you have done something, right? Must have done something. It's I think I'm sure you've done it. Whilst in this case, we want to say that, well, there was an obligation, right, for me to do something in the past. So quite a different meaning. All right, all right. Now, what about this one? Quite a frequent error. If he will be late, or if I would know. Okay, so what we're dealing with here is conditionals, obviously. And anyone, how would you correct these two sentences? What you must remember. Ah, right, thank you, Janusz, exactly. So after if, there is no will, there is no would. Well, perhaps some of you might say, okay, but what about a sentence like, if you'll excuse me? Yes, it is possible, true. Or a phrase like, if you would be so kind? Yes, also true. You can use it in English, but it's a different story, right? Because we are asking someone for a favor to do something for us, or we're excusing ourselves in this way. Whereas in this particular case, we're talking about conditionals, right? So in such a conditional sentence, after if, in the present, in the first conditional, when we talk about a situation that is possible, can happen in the future, we will use present simple, and then we'll can. Okay, so our sentence will look like this. If he leaves home late, or if he is late, he'll miss the bus, right? And in the second conditional, it's when do we use it? To imagine a situation, a present or future situation that is impossible, right? Or unlikely in reality. So, like, if I were rich, but I'm not, right? So, right. So, in here, we'll use past simple and then would. If I knew, I would tell you, but I don't know, right? So, it's only hypothetical. Hypothetical. Okay, so if I knew, if I were, if I had, these are the correct forms in the second conditional, right? Perhaps it'll help you to remember the lyrics of the song, if I were a rich man, right? So the opera, so that's the phrase, yeah, if I were. Okay, okay. So much about conditionals. Another problem. That's expressing likes or dislikes, right? Things we like and don't like. And right, what's the problem here? How would you correct it? So I like read. I'm sure you know this one. I like reading. Okay, so after such verbs as like, enjoy, love, or hate, we would use either a noun, right? We could just say, I love theatre, or I love classical music, or a verb plus this ing that is gerund form, right? So I like reading, I enjoy jogging, I love riding a bike, cycling, biking, or I hate running. Yeah, that's also possible. Okay, and another thing worth remembering here is, right, what's wrong with this one? I very like reading. Is this correct? Well, definitely not, right? Um, would you use very with another verb like I very cook or I very dance? No, you wouldn't. So why would you use it with like I very like? No, something's wrong here. You could say, yeah, what would you say instead? What would you say instead? You know, obviously you want to say I really like it. Yeah, I really like it. So what? I'm waiting for some of your answers. Okay, maybe I like reading very much, or which is even better, I like reading a lot. I like reading a lot. Okay, okay. To be honest with you, you get something like I very much like, okay, but not very like. I very much like doing, like for example, especially in written English. Like if you want to emphasize how positive you are about something, you could say, "Oh, I very much like the way this room is decorated," for example, right? Or I would very much like to hear somebody's opinion, and that's fine, right? But not just I very like. Okay, so it's much better, and much better. It's just correct to say I like reading a lot, simply. All right, all right. And let's go on to another grammatical problem, which is this one. My another responsibilities, or I have another people under me. What is the problem here? How would you correct these two sentences? Uh-huh. Okay, yeah. So the thing is that another would only be used with a singular verb. So, sorry, a singular noun, of course, right? So what we should say instead is my other responsibilities are, or I have other people under me, right? They report to me. So another means uh, only one, right? So would you like another cup of coffee? There's another car park a little further down the same street. Whilst other can be used for both singular and plural nouns, right? So you say my other duties are, or there are other things to consider, or there's no other work available at the moment. Are you interested in the other model? So both singular and plural nouns, another only one. Yeah. So to like another piece of cake, for example. Yeah. All right. Now, what comes next is redundant prepositions. What do we mean by redundant? Do you know this word? We could use it in another context and say somebody's been made redundant, right? To make someone redundant is to fire them, right? To lay them off, in other words. So to tell them, sorry, we no longer need you, right? You're unnecessary here. So redundant prepositions would mean they are not necessary here, right? So in English, we call somebody, we go, stay, are home, we discuss something like a problem, an issue, or our plans, and we mention something, right? So that is like talk about something, right? Uh, there are no prepositions here. So our sentences would sound, I call our clients, right, as part of my duties, or I go home at 5 after work, right? Or we discussed our plans, that's a very frequent one. Or he mentioned the incident, right? So no prepositions here. Okay. And to continue talking about prepositions, we have this one here, also quite a typical one, on the picture. Why do we say it? Well, because this is exactly what we say in Polish, right? Now, how about English? What do we say in English? In the picture. Thank you, Katarzyna. Exactly. Say in the picture, we see this and that, and in the foreground, in the background, it's always in the picture. Okay. Okay. And we're still talking about prepositions here, because look at this sentence. I live so close to our office that I can get there by foot. No, that's not correct. Thank you. I can get there on foot. Right, so this one's tricky because we say we travel by car, by tram, by bus, train, or plane, but here's an exception, right? We can walk or get somewhere on foot. Funnily enough, it's like one foot, as if we were using only one leg. No, it means we use two of them, but the phrase is on foot, right, instead of feet, perhaps. So remember that. And one more. Okay, so I live so close to our office that I can get there on foot. And one more problem with prepositions is this one. I'm good in writing reports or math. So obviously, again, this is something we say in Polish, but in English, I'm good at something. Thank you, Katarzyna. Okay, so I'm good at either writing reports or math. So again, I'm good at something. It's either a noun, right, or a verb plus this ing form, a gerund, right? I'm good at doing something. So it applies to other prepositions as well, right? Not only at, obviously, but you would use the same form with other prepositions. So I use English for writing emails, or I'm responsible for dealing with complaints, or I have difficulty with entering data into the system, right? There's some error. Okay, so that's what happens here. Okay. So much about prepositions for the time being. What about this problem now? I live in Warsaw. I visited similar factories in Europe. The problem is called articles. Okay, so we have these indefinite articles, a and n, and the a definite article. When do we use a and n? A and n? We use them before singular nouns, right? We say a cat, a door, a chair, and before a vowel, right? So we'd say an onion, an ice cream, an egg. Easter's coming, so yeah, an egg. How about that? Well, the use of that, of this definite article, often poses a challenge, right, to us English learners, right? It's not, well, it's a tricky thing, right? When to use it, when not to use it. So something like the basic rule to remember is that we use this article when we believe the listener or reader knows exactly what we're referring to. So say someone's just come in and is holding keys and say, we put the keys on the table, right? Because he's holding the keys, right? So we're referring to the object and there's just one table in the room, right? Or because there's only one such thing or person, like for instance, who's the president of France? There's only one president of France. Or with the superlative adjective, that would be like the biggest, the smallest, the most interesting. Yeah. To talk about musical instruments, like I play the piano. To refer to a system service, like I've heard it on the radio, for example. Yeah. Okay. So we should know when to use them, but it's equally important to know when not to use them. Okay, so we don't use the definite article with names of cities, countries, continents. Like William Shakespeare wrote Hamlet, or Paris is the capital of France, right? A very typical phrase, the capital of, right? The something of. That's when we would use this article. Iran is in Asia. Okay, now I know you're going to protest and say, okay, but how about the United States or the United Kingdom or the Netherlands? Yes, there are some exceptions, of course, but this is the general rule. Okay, so we would say just Warsaw. I live in Warsaw. I visited similar factories in Europe. Okay, no definite article here. Okay, okay. So much about articles. Let's now have a look at some interrogative words. So words we use to form questions, right? Words like where, why, when, who, what, and how. Okay. How about these three sentences now? How is it called in English? Or I don't know how it's called. Or how does he look? What's the problem here? Anyone? This is right. Thank you, Katarzyna. Exactly. So we should use what here in these examples. But before we go there, let me tell you a little bit about the difference between the two interrogative words. So we use what to ask for information, right, about the description of something or some action. How it is used to talk about the manner, right, how something is done, manner in which something happens or the state someone is in. We could use how in these sentences, right, to ask about somebody's health, somebody's well-being, like for example, how is she, how is someone. Yes, are they well or fine, not feeling so good? How's work today? How's your flight? How's Cambridge, right? So it's like we're asking about someone's opinion. How do we say it in English? Perfectly fine. So we're asking here about the manner, right? How do we do it? Or with some adjectives and adverbs like how long, how far, much, many, how often, how fast, how easy, how difficult, right? And you know all this. However, with the sentences, oh right, sorry, and before we get to the sentences, problematic sentences, it's also worth remembering the difference between these three sentences. Okay, so again, how is she? We are asking about someone's well-being. Yeah. But if we ask what is she like, what is someone like, what are we asking about? Anyone? What's this question about? What is he? What is she like? Like someone says, "Oh, the new girlfriend. Oh, what's she like?" So we want to know. No, no, no. So that's the look is the next one. See, what is she like? It's the question about someone's personal characteristics. Okay, so if she's friendly or not, yeah, personal characteristic. And the next question, what does she look like? That's the question about someone's appearance, right? Are they tall or fat, slim, about their hair, etc. Right? So, what does someone look like? The appearance. What are they like? What are they kind of inside, right? What are the personal characteristics? We can also use this question to talk about the weather, right? What's the weather like today? Right? I'm sure you know this question. Now, coming back to our previous questions, what is it called in English, right? Because we ask it for about information, a description of something. What is it called in English? Or I don't know what it's called. And again, What does he look like, right? Again, you might form a question like, how do I look, right? So I'm putting on a dress, right? And I'm asking my husband, how do I look? So do you like, right, what you see? Do I look good in this dress? But that's a different question, right? And here, what what does someone look like? We want the other person to describe their appearance. Oh gosh, I hope I'm making myself clear and that you understand the differences between all these sentences. Okay. Hope you're still with me. All right. So another question, another sentences, problematic ones. Who gave you the information? Or I appreciate some advices. What is the problem here? Uh-huh. Information, exactly. So who gave you the information? I'd appreciate some advice. Exactly. These nouns are uncountable, right? We cannot count them. They have no plural form. Okay, if you want to make them plural in a way, right, what you can do is use them with these words. That's an interesting piece or item of information, right? That would mean one piece, one item. Or to make it plural, oh, some interesting items or pieces of information that you've just given us. So that would make it plural. Or can I give you a friendly word, piece, bit of advice? So again, one. Or to make it plural, can I give you some friendly words of advice? Okay, then we would make it plural. But these nouns cannot be used with s, right? We cannot form a plural noun here in this way. What is also worth remembering is that we need this noun and verb agreement here. So further information is available upon request, right? So it is not are, obviously, because it's a singular verb. The information he obtained was not accurate. Here is some advice for our new employees, right? So the noun and verb, they need to agree, right? So it's like a singular noun only. Okay, and just two other frequent errors. Okay, so when talking about age, you know that we do not use the verb have, right? We don't say I have years old. We say I am uh, 20 years old, right? Uh, uh, okay, and I can also tell you about my children that, okay, I have a son and he is, say, 16 years old. But what if I want to say now, I have a son, right? So what happens here is, right, can I say something like that? I have a 6 years old son. Uh-huh. Not really. Yes. What the problem here is exactly, Sylvester. Well done. So what happens here is that this whole phrase is used as an adjective right before a noun that is son. So it cannot be used in this way. We cannot use year in the plural because this is the whole like a whole adjective for us. So we need to say I have a 6-year-old son, and please notice the little hyphens right between 6-year-old. They are also necessary there. So we can say I have a 6-year-old son, or perhaps I have a child of 6. Right? This is also possible. Okay, and another small problem that I sometimes encounter in class is this one, right? Are everybody or are everyone here? And well, it's easy to guess why we make this mistake, right, Sylvester? Well done. You're a grammar expert. So exactly. So this is what we say in Polish, to wszyscy są, right? And in English, if you kind of separate the word everybody, right, you get two words, and body is obviously a singular noun, and it's the same case with everyone, right? One singular noun. So the verb, we need this noun and verb agreement here, and so we need to use is. Everyone is everybody here, or say you're at a conference or a meeting, say has everybody got the handout? Yeah. So necessarily this form of the verb. Okay, sorry, so much about grammar. Let's now continue and go on to talk about vocabulary. Okay, let's see what we've got here. Sorry. So a very typical mistake here, a kind of false friend, right? We think it's a similar word to Polish, but it's not. It doesn't mean the same thing. So can we go to the Indian restaurant or eventually to that new Italian place? Hmm. Optionally? Okay, yeah, that's possible. We could say optionally. Um, or we could say alternatively, right? Perhaps a bit long, difficult word, but alternatively is what we want to say, right? Uh, See, eventually means in the end. So it's like a totally different meaning here, right? We could say eventually he managed to talk to his boss, or I think you'll understand that eventually, which is like in the end. Okay. So totally different meaning, right? So remember, if you want to say ewentualnie, say alternatively, right? Okay. And another such example, okay, this sentence is not exactly wrong, right? You can hear someone say something like that, and it could be true and correct. Like last summer, I went to Croatia with my colleagues. Okay, okay, fine. But probably, in majority of cases, yeah, I think, so in majority of cases, what someone means is that they went on holidays with their friends. Okay, because who's a colleague? A colleague is a person you work with, right? This is your or fellow worker. So you would perhaps more often expect to hear this word used in a more professional context, like work-related context, right? You'd say something like, we're having a small drinks party for one of our colleagues who's leaving next week, right? Or we could say, her work is highly esteemed by all her colleagues. Or maybe, please read this memo carefully and hand it on to your colleagues. Okay, so okay, it is perfectly fine. I mean, if you get on well with your colleagues, they can obviously become your friends, and you can go on holidays with them. Why not? But just remember that colleague might be your friend, but it doesn't work the other way around, right? A friend is not your colleague, right? Colleague is only a person you work with. Okay. Another thing, she said me. Uh-huh. What's the problem here? Sorry, guys. She told me exactly. So this is a nice pair of words which is often misused because they actually mean the same thing, right? To say and tell, they mean the same thing. But the structure, the way we use them is a bit different, right? Because we we say something to somebody. So she said goodbye to her friends and left, or tell somebody something. So tell me the truth, right? Mother to a child, tell me the truth. So so that's the difference, right? So we can say she told me or she said something to me. Okay. So that's pretty important. That say goes with this preposition to. Say something to someone. Okay. And there's another pair of words which are often misused. Okay, I'm sure you know what I mean. It's borrow, and the other one exactly. Lend, right? So instead of I can borrow you my book, we should say I can lend you my book. Now, what is the difference here? But again, if you put them into Polish, the two words mean the same thing, but it depends which way the action works, right? So we could say, so if you lend something to someone, it's like you give it to them, right? But if you take something from someone, you borrow it, right? You need to return it. So and there is an easy trick, okay, a kind of hint that I was that I was taught when learning English. That borrow is like take. Take is like brać in Polish, right? Br, br. We have the same sound, right? Br, borrow, brać. So perhaps that will help you remember the difference, right? And it'll help you use these two words correctly. Okay, I hope that's a useful hint. All right, all right. And right, so can I borrow your car? And someone will lend it to you. Okay, right. Now, how about this one? And again, the sentence is not exactly wrong, right? But on the other hand, it's rather unlikely that someone would say something like that because Yeah, exactly. Why? Because by saying, exactly. Because by saying I live in a country, I mean I live in Poland, right? And everyone lives in some country, so that's why I'm saying it's kind of unlikely that someone would say something like this. And the thing is, country has two meanings, right? We could say an area of land that has its own government, armies, like Poland, Germany, France. But also, it could be land that is not in towns, cities, or industrial areas and is either used for farming or left in its natural condition. But then we need to say, I live in that country. Okay? I live in that country. Or alternatively, right, you could say, I live in a village, right? Or perhaps in the suburbs. That would be, outside the city center. Perhaps a slightly different meaning. But remember, I live in that country uh, instead of the city, a city, and not in a country. Okay, that makes a difference. Uh, okay, now another interesting case is with the word back. So what's wrong with saying I back from my holidays in 2 weeks or I backed from my holiday last week? What is the problem here? Any idea? Oh, right. Again, Sylvester, bravo. I will be back or I was back, right? So what's the problem here? Well, see, the noun, right, back could be a noun, meaning this part of your body, right? It could be an adverb, meaning into, towards a previous place or condition, an earlier time. But then we would need to use it with a uh, like if you would like to convey the message in the previous sentence, we'd need to use it with a verb, like to come back or be or get back, right? Now we have a verb to back, but the meaning is totally different because it means to give someone support. Okay, so we could say the management has refused to back our proposals. Okay, to back up is to support. So again, if we want to say that we've returned or returned from someplace, we'd say I came back from my holiday last week, or I will be back from my holiday next week. Okay, right. So something to remember. And there is another word which is also pretty often misused in this structure. You have right. Okay, so what's the problem here? Okay, so this is what we want. So this is what we want to say. This is right. This kind of situation when we want to say, "I agree with you." I think what you're saying is correct, right? Because right as an adjective means correct. So if you agree with someone, you should say, oh, "Thank you, Anna Shigan." So you are right. Would you use another adjective with the verb have? Would you say you have green? No, no, it doesn't. It sounds pretty awkward. Like you have green what? Green plants, right? Green fingers, maybe, but an idiomatic expression. But you have a point. But point is a noun, right? So it's perfectly fine. But right is an adjective. So why would you use it with the verb have? No explanation here. You need to use it with the verb be, right? You are right to say, I think you're correct, right? In what you're saying. However, right is also a noun, but the meaning is different. It's a moral or legal entitlement to have or do something. Okay, and in this case, we can use it with the noun with the verb have right or have rights. For example, everyone has a right to education, right? Everyone has a right to go to school, is entitled to it. Or they launched a campaign for women's rights. Yeah, of course, it can also mean the right side, of course. But in here, this is about this right to have something, right? So you have a right to do something, but if you want to say that you agree with someone, say, I think you're right. I think you are right. Yeah. But you have a right to vote. You have every right to be angry. Yes. Say there's some very, I don't know, there was some argument, right? And you think someone is right. And you say, oh, you have every right to be angry with someone for what they said. Okay. Okay. So I hope this is all clear so far. And now, right, let's continue talking about adjectives. And this is something you're all pretty much familiar with. So, interesting in motorbikes or fashion. What's the problem here, anyone? Okay. Mm-hmm. I see I have a few, there are a few grammar experts here. So I'm interested in, obviously, what is the difference? Okay, so these ed adjectives, let's call them like this, are used to describe emotions. They tell us how people feel. Okay, and these ing adjectives, they are used to describe the thing that causes the emotion. So we could say a boring lesson makes you feel bored, right? Oh, right. Or a frightening film makes you feel frightened. Confusing information makes you feel confused, right? So ed to say how we feel, ing adjectives to say how we feel about something, right? To describe them, right? So an interesting person, but you're interested in something. Okay. And just two other two mistakes, perhaps. Oh well, let's just talk about them as well. It's something like this. According to me, now, what does it mean? According to, that would mean as stated by. And see, if you say according to me, it sounds a bit awkward to native speakers because it's like, well, people generally don't talk to themselves, right? So it's as if I said something and then I kind of quote it, right? Um, but usually we don't talk to ourselves. So what the thing is that after this phrase, according to, we use another person, right? So we'd say according to the author of some book, according to the scientist, according to my boss, for instance. But now, if I want to express my opinion, I simply say in my opinion, right? So instead of according to me, say in my opinion. Okay. Okay, and the last thing here in this section, that's the word formation kind of problem. So sometimes I ask people about their jobs, what they do, what their duties are, and yeah, and the way they reply is I'm responsibility for. Uh, Whilst obviously responsibility is a noun, right? So we can't really use it in this way. We need to say I'm responsible for, right? So we use an adjective here. And something we've already talked about today, what follows again is I'm responsible either for something or for, we would use a verb with ing formed as gerund form of a verb that is I'm responsible for doing something. So I can either say I'm responsible for the quality of the services we provide, right? Or I'm responsible for overseeing all the company's advertising. Right? This is something we talked about earlier. After preposition, we need this gerund form of a verb. Okay, but you could use, right, someone says, my responsibility is, exactly. So you could actually use this noun responsibility to talk about your job, your duties in this way. You could say, it's my responsibility to ensure the project finishes in time. Perfectly fine. Or one of my responsibilities is welcoming guests and answering phones. So either I'm responsible for welcoming guests and answering phones, or one of my responsibilities is doing something. Okay, is this clear? Okay, so far so good. Okay, so this is actually everything about. Thank you for the thumbs up. So that's all about vocabulary. Let's now have a look at some pronunciation pitfalls. Okay, and we have these four culprits here, words which are most often mispronounced. I'm sure you know them well, at least the first three. Now, in this first word, if you look closely at this word, you see this table at the end, right? So you might be kind of tempted to read it in this way, right? As there is this table. Well, but the thing is, there is no table. We need to pronounce this word as comfortable. Comfortable. Perhaps you could repeat after me. Comfortable. And similarly, vegetable, right? It's got the same prefix able, right? You could actually use it with other adjectives like capable or knowledgeable, right? Same prefix able. Uh, right. What about the next one? Again, we might be tempted to pronounce the last part of the word as mine, right? Because we know mine, we know how to pronounce it, so we can somehow assume that that's how we pronounce the word. But no, we say determine, determine. Okay, so remember that. And the last one, perhaps not a very often used one, it's a vehicle. Vehicle. Okay, and just three more. Okay, I'm sure you know them. Now, what do they mean and how do we pronounce them? Because they, all of them mean something else. They kind of look similar to one another, but all of them mean something else, and we pronounce them in a different manner. So the first one is the kind of drink that we appreciate so much in hot summer. That's beer for you. Okay, beer. Right. This right. So in British English you'd say beer. In American English you'd pronounce this R at the end, right? Beer, probably. Sorry, my American English is not so good. The next one is the animal, right? And we pronounce it bear. Again, with this R sound at the end or not, depending on the accent. And the last one, that's the hair growing on usually a men's chin, right? So we'd say the beard, beard. So beard, bear, beard. Okay, quite tricky ones. Okay, all right, all right, and that's actually it as regards pronunciation. So let's now see how much you remember. Okay, I have an exercise for you here. I'm going to paste a link to it in the chat, so you can actually do it on your own. Sorry. Oh, sorry, not there yet. Where's my chat? There you go. Okay, so you can open this exercise and do it on your own, or I'm going to share it here with you. Okay. There you go. Correct or incorrect. Okay, I hope you can see it now. So, right, let's go to group sort, click start, and the task is to drag and drop these sentences, right, under both categories, correct or incorrect sentence. So what about the first one? I have a 10-year-old daughter. Is it correct or not? This sentence is perfectly fine. There is no S with years, so it's a very good sentence. Could you lend me your phone? It's like, could you give me your phone? Right, so it's perfectly fine. During the meeting, we discussed about some, say, issues. Sorry, a word is missing here. But discuss about? No, right? We discussed something, right? There is no preposition there, which means the sentence is incorrect. Call me later, please. Sure, I'll call you when I'm back home. Well, in here, we need a verb, right? When I get back, when I come back, when I'm back home. So it's incorrect. I'll call to him tomorrow. No, that's incorrect. We do not need the preposition there. What does she look like? She's tall and slim. Is it good? Yes, it's okay. Mix 2 tablespoons of sugar or eventually honey into the mixture. What do you say? Eventually is a false friend, right? It means in the end. What we want to say here is alternatively. Now, could you say me what time the conference starts? Oich, something's wrong here, right? Could you say me? Now, could you tell me? Right. I'm responsibility for analyzing data. Responsibility. It is my responsibility to do something, but I'm responsible for. Okay. My other duties are making and delivering presentations to the board. What do you say? Yeah, this one's fine. No problem here. I live in a country. I don't like big cities. So what someone means is that they live in the country, right? This sentence is incorrect. How are you feeling? Exhausted, right? I've had a hard day today, say. So yeah, perfectly fine. Instead of exhausting, we say exhausted. It's Saturday tomorrow, so we mustn't get up early. Remember this one? We don't have to. Okay, mustn't means it's forbidden. According to the author of this research, yes, it's fine. How long have you been working here? For a month? Yep, that sounds good. Yep, no problem. Have you checked the informations? I'm not sure they are correct. Okay, something's wrong here, right? First of all, information, and I'm not sure it is correct, right? Because the noun is singular only. You're absolutely right. Perfect. If I had his number, I would call him. I, if I had his number, I would call him. I'm sorry, this sentence is perfectly fine. I don't know why. Did we do something incorrectly then? Sorry, let me just click submit answers because I don't know which one's incorrect. Oh, sorry, I put this one into under correct category. I'm sorry, it should obviously be under incorrect um, uh, in the other category. So that was incorrect. Sorry, my mistake. All right. So as you can see, there's nothing happens if you make a mistake, right? It's not like it's a serious crime, but right. So what I would like to say to you, just to wrap things up, is that to err is human, right? We all make mistakes, and so don't let the fear of making mistakes stop you from using the language, right? No, on the contrary, use it as much as possible. Listen and read as much as possible because the more